"You're just not management material, Nathan," Brad Morrison said, leaning back in his leather chair with that smirk I'd grown to hate. "The Phoenix Convention Center project needs someone with stronger leadership skills." I kept my face neutral even though my hands wanted to clench into fists. Through his glass office walls, I could see my coworkers pretending not to watch this train wreck happen. "The same Phoenix project where my HVAC redesign saved the company $2.8 million, I asked quietly. Brad waved his hand like he was swatting a fly. "My redesign. I presented it to the board. After I created it. That's your job, Nathan, to support me." He sighed like I was some disappointing kid. "Look, this isn't working anymore. I need someone who understands their place in the hierarchy." I nodded slowly, feeling this weird calm wash over me. "I understand perfectly. I'll clean out my desk by Friday, but Monday's going to be interesting." Brad rolled his eyes, always with the cryptic comments. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm Nathan Thompson, 52 years old, and I've been a senior engineering manager at Morrison Engineering Solutions for 6 years. Before that, I spent 19 years working my way up from a junior technician to someone companies actually called when their HVAC systems were screwed beyond belief. My specialty? Making buildings breathe efficiently while keeping costs down and meeting ASHRAE standards. What I didn't specialize in was office politics, which is how I ended up in this mess. Brad Morrison is 35, son of company founder Robert Morrison, and the biggest fraud I've ever met in my 25 years in this business. He's got an MBA from some fancy school but couldn't calculate BTU requirements for a small office if his life depended on it. What he can do is steal other people's work and present it like he's some kind of engineering genius. Walking back to my desk, I passed the wall of project photos in our main hallway. The Phoenix Convention Center mock-up, the Denver Tech Park, the Colorado Springs Medical Complex, all projects I'd poured my expertise into, all with little brass nameplates crediting Brad as lead design engineer. That medical complex alone, my geothermal system reduced their energy costs by 18% annually, but according to the plaque, Brad designed it. My phone buzzed. Text from Dave Rodriguez, my buddy who's been here even longer than me. "How'd it go?" Brad looked pretty smug walking back to his office. "As expected. He's pushing me out." "That's insane. Your geothermal system for the medical complex just won the Colorado Energy Efficiency Award. His geothermal system, according to the press release." I sat down and unlocked my desk drawer, pulling out the backup drive I'd been keeping updated for the past 8 months. Call it paranoia, but when Brad started taking credit for my work more aggressively after getting promoted to project director last year, I figured I'd better start keeping copies of everything. Original CAD files, load, calculations, email chains, documentation, just in case. The phone rang. Our receptionist, Megan. "Nathan, there's someone from Rocky Mountain Technical in the lobby asking for you. Says it's about collaboration proposals you prepared for them." My stomach dropped. I'd never prepared any proposals for Rocky Mountain Technical. They're our biggest competitor in the region, based out of Colorado Springs. "I'll be right down." In the elevator, I had this sinking feeling that things were about to get a whole lot worse than just losing my job. The guy waiting for me was maybe 50, well-dressed professional handshake. "Mr. Thompson, I'm James Walsh from Rocky Mountain Technical. Thanks for meeting with me. I think there's been some mistake," I said carefully. "I've never prepared any collaboration proposals for your company." His eyebrows went up. "That's odd. We have preliminary designs for our Phoenix Convention Center bid that were submitted as joint collaboration concepts. Brad Morrison shared them with us 3 weeks ago, said you'd authored the technical specifications." The room started spinning a little. Phoenix Convention Center, that was the $75 million project I'd been working on after hours for the past 6 months, sketching out ideas for a revolutionary dual-zone HVAC system that could handle desert heat while achieving 18% better energy efficiency than code requirements. I'd been planning to present it to Robert Morrison as my proposal for Morrison Engineering's bid. I'd never intended to share it with anyone, especially not our competitors. "Could I see these designs?" I managed to ask. He pulled out his tablet, and there they were. My sketches, my load calculations, my innovative VAV system with dedicated outdoor air handling and energy recovery ventilation. But they'd been professionally rendered and had Rocky Mountain Technical's logo on them alongside Morrison Engineering's. These were presented as potential joint venture concepts, James explained. Brad suggested our companies could collaborate on the Phoenix project, with Morrison handling design development and Rocky Mountain managing construction oversight. We were quite impressed with the CFM calculations and the energy modeling. Those CFM calculations had taken me weeks to perfect. The energy modeling required specialized software I'd learned on my own time. Who else has seen these? Our entire engineering team. We've also presented preliminary concepts to the Phoenix Development Authority as part of our qualification process. They were very excited about the projected 18% energy savings and the innovative dual-zone approach. I felt sick. Brad hadn't just stolen my work. He'd positioned it as a collaboration proposal to cut Morrison Engineering into a deal with our biggest competitor. And judging by the timing of my firing, he needed me gone before I found out about it. Mr. Walsh, I need to be completely honest with you. These designs are my personal work, developed independently over the past 6 months. I was never involved in any collaboration discussions between our companies. His face went serious. Are you saying Brad Morrison doesn't have authorization to share your work? I'm saying Brad Morrison has been systematically taking credit for my engineering work for over a year. And this might be the biggest theft yet. James Walsh closed his tablet slowly. Mr. Thompson, I think we need to have a longer conversation, but not here. Back upstairs, I went straight to Dave's desk. We need to talk. Privately. In the break room, I filled him in on what just happened. Dave's face went through about 5 different expressions before settling on anger. He's shopping your designs to Rocky Mountain as collaboration proposals. That's not just stealing credit, Nathan. That's potentially corporate espionage, depending on how he presented it. Gets worse. I just got an email about an all-staff meeting at 3 p.m. Strategic partnership announcement. Dave checked his watch. That's in 90 minutes. You think Brad's going to announce the Rocky Mountain collaboration? I think Brad's about to get promoted based on my stolen work, and he needed me fired before anyone could ask technical questions he can't answer. I spent the next hour doing something I should have done months ago, organizing my evidence. The backup drive contained everything. Original AutoCAD files with timestamps, hand-drawn sketches with my notes, email chains where I'd discussed design challenges with equipment vendors, even photos of my home office whiteboard covered with psychrometric calculations. The smoking gun was an email from 4 months ago. Brad had asked me to review some preliminary concepts for Phoenix and provide technical validation of the approach. I'd spent a weekend writing detailed comments about load calculations, equipment sizing, and energy code compliance. 2 weeks later, those exact concepts appeared in a presentation Brad gave to Robert Morrison, claiming he'd developed them independently. At 3:00 p.m., the conference room filled quickly. I chose a seat near the back, watching Brad stand next to Robert Morrison, like the heir apparent he'd always been. Robert looked excited. Brad looked triumphant. Today marks an exciting milestone for Morrison Engineering, Robert announced. We're announcing a strategic collaboration with Rocky Mountain Technical for major Colorado projects, starting with our joint approach to the Phoenix Convention Center. Up on the screen came my designs, now professionally rendered with both companies' logos. My dual-zone system, my energy recovery calculations, my innovative approach to desert climate HVAC, all presented as the brilliant collaboration between Morrison Engineering and Rocky Mountain Technical. Robert continued, "This partnership, developed by my son Brad, represents the innovative thinking that will position us for the next decade of growth." Brad stepped up to the podium, clicking to the first technical slide. "Thank you, Dad. This collaboration showcases our commitment to cutting-edge sustainable engineering. Our joint team has developed a revolutionary dual-zone approach that achieves 18% better energy performance than standard systems." He started explaining my concepts, but immediately I could tell he was getting the technical details wrong. He talked about optimized thermal coefficients when he meant heat transfer rates. He described the VAV system as variable air velocity instead of variable air volume. Any real engineer in the room would know he was bullshitting, but Robert was beaming with pride. The CFM calculations alone, Brad continued, clearly reading from notes, required advanced psychrometric analysis and specialized energy modeling software. Dave, sitting 2 rows ahead, turned and caught my eye. His expression said it all. He knew exactly whose work this really was. To lead this exciting new direction, Robert announced, "I'm promoting Brad to Vice President of Engineering, effective immediately." Everyone clapped. Brad soaked it up, then his eyes found mine across the room. There was a warning in that look. Keep your mouth shut or else. After the meeting, I caught Robert in the hallway. could I speak with you privately about the Phoenix project technical specifications? Of course, Nathan. Brad mentioned you provided some valuable input on the preliminary concepts, but Brad appeared like a bad rash. Dad, didn't you have that conference call with the Denver contractors at 3:30? Robert checked his watch. Right, yes. Nathan, can this wait until tomorrow? It's about the technical authenticity of the HVAC calculations, I said firmly. Brad's smile got tighter. Actually, Dad, that reminds me. I've been meaning to discuss some performance concerns about Nathan. Quality control issues, missed deadlines, and some confusion about project ownership. Robert looked between us like we were two kids fighting over a toy. Let's address this now, he decided, waving us into his office. For the next 20 minutes, I watched Brad systematically destroy my reputation. He had doctored performance reviews, fabricated timeline complaints, and emails that made it look like I'd been claiming credit for collaborative work. The final blow, he implied I'd been inappropriately sharing proprietary designs with outside firms. That's completely false, I finally interrupted. I have documentation proving Nathan, Robert held up his hand. Brad has presented substantial evidence of performance issues. Given these concerns and our new partnership direction, I think it's best if we part ways. Effective immediately. Brad slid a folder across the table. Standard separation agreement. 8-week severance, which is generous considering the circumstances. I stared at the papers. And if I dispute this? Robert's expression hardened. We have extensive documentation of performance problems going back months. Fighting this would only damage your professional reputation in the Denver engineering community. Translation. They'd drag my name through the mud and make sure I never worked in Colorado again. I understand, I said quietly, taking the folder. As I cleaned out my desk, the backup drive went into my bag first. Then the framed photo of my daughter Sarah graduating from Colorado School of Mines with her mechanical engineering degree. 25 years of work reduced to a cardboard box. Megan hugged me goodbye at reception. This is wrong, Nathan. Everyone knows whose work this really is. Thanks, kiddo. Take care of yourself. At home, I poured a beer and opened my laptop. First, I uploaded everything to a secure cloud account. Then I started going through 6 years of emails, looking for anything that might help my case. In a folder from 8 months ago, I found it. An email chain where Brad explicitly asked for my help on the struggling Denver Tech Park project. Need your expertise on this one, Nathan, he'd written. The kind of innovative approach that made your medical complex geothermal system such a success. It wasn't just proof of my work. It was Brad, in his own words, admitting I was the real engineer behind the systems he now claimed as his own. I spent the weekend building my case methodically. The email I'd discovered was just the beginning. I worked through my archives, constructing a timeline of Brad's appropriation. By Sunday night, I had compiled a detailed dossier. Original design files with metadata proving authorship, email chains showing concept evolution, performance reviews contradicting Brad's claims, and client testimonials from people who had worked directly with me. Monday morning brought an unexpected email from James Walsh at Rocky Mountain Technical. Nathan, urgent developments regarding the collaboration proposal. Phoenix officials are requesting technical clarification meetings. Available to discuss today. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Denver. James looked concerned. I'll be direct, he started. After our partnership announcement, Phoenix Development Authority requested detailed technical interviews with the actual engineers. They want to feature the design process in their sustainability showcase. I waited, knowing where this was headed. Brad Morrison couldn't answer their technical questions. When they asked about heat load calculations for the main exhibition hall, he became evasive. When they pressed him on energy recovery ventilation specifics, he started talking about proprietary algorithms he couldn't discuss. And, James grimaced. One official recognized similarities to published case studies about your medical complex work and asked specifically about your involvement. The Phoenix contract is worth $75 million over 18 months. They're not signing anything until they understand who actually designed these systems. Despite everything, I almost felt sorry for Brad. Almost. What did he tell them about my involvement? He claimed you were his mentor, that he'd learned sustainable design principles from you, but, Nathan, James looked uncomfortable. They want to interview you directly, as the senior engineer on the project. The irony was beautiful. Brad had stolen my work to get promoted, but he couldn't explain it well enough to fool actual engineers who asked real questions. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "I've been terminated from Morrison Engineering because we need this partnership to work. Rocky Mountain Technical has already invested significant resources in the collaboration. If the technical foundation isn't solid, we're all in trouble." My phone buzzed with a news alert. Morrison Engineering Partnership under review pending technical validation. I showed James the headline. His face went pale. "It's already becoming public. James, I appreciate your honesty, but I'm not Morrison's employee anymore. Whatever technical problems Brad has explaining my work, that's between him and Phoenix officials. What if Rocky Mountain Technical hired you as a consulting engineer, independent of Morrison?" That was interesting. To do what exactly? To provide technical validation for the Phoenix project designs, since you apparently created them. I sipped my coffee thinking. Brad had stolen my work, fired me to cover his tracks, and was now facing technical questions he couldn't answer. Meanwhile, the project was falling apart because he couldn't explain systems he'd never actually designed. "I'll consider it," I told James. "But first, I want to see exactly what Brad presented to Phoenix officials, and I want to understand the full scope of this collaboration agreement." James nodded. "I can arrange that. But Nathan, whatever happened between you and Brad Morrison, there are a lot of jobs riding on this project working out." As he left, I got another email, this one from a Phoenix City engineer I'd never met. "Mr. Thompson, we understand you were involved in the Morrison engineering designs for our convention center. Could we schedule a technical discussion about the HVAC specifications?" Brad's house of cards was starting to collapse. Tuesday morning brought 3 more emails that made me smile. Phoenix Development Authority requesting technical clarification. An engineering reporter from ENR asking about design attribution questions on a major public project. And Dave Rodriguez with a single line, "You need to see what's happening at the office." I drove to Morrison Engineering and met Dave at the coffee shop across the street. Through the windows, I could see unusual activity, people in suits I didn't recognize, lots of serious conversations. Rocky Mountain technical executives showed up an hour ago, Dave explained. Emergency meeting with Robert and Brad. Something about technical validation issues. Technical validation? Phoenix officials rejected the preliminary designs, said the engineering calculations don't match the performance claims. They're demanding to interview the actual design engineer before proceeding. I sipped my coffee, watching the drama unfold across the street. "And Brad can't provide that engineer because he fired me yesterday. Gets better. The Rocky Mountain team brought their own mechanical engineers to verify the HVAC specs. They spent 2 hours going through the calculations with Brad. Word is, he couldn't explain basic psychrometric principles behind his own revolutionary design." Through the window, I saw James Walsh gesturing animatedly at a conference table. Robert Morrison looked like he was aging in real time. "Dave, I need you to do something for me. Can you access the original project files Brad submitted for the Phoenix collaboration?" "Probably. Why?" "Because I want to see exactly what he changed when he stole my work. And I want to know if his modifications actually make engineering sense." An hour later, Dave texted me a link to a shared drive. I opened the files and immediately saw the problem. Brad had taken my original designs but made improvements that betrayed his complete lack of understanding. He'd increased the air handling unit capacity by 30% without adjusting the ductwork sizing. He'd specified equipment that wouldn't fit in the mechanical rooms. Most damaging, he'd claimed energy savings that his modifications actually made impossible. My phone rang. "James Walsh. Nathan, we need to meet immediately. There are serious technical issues with the Morrison collaboration." "I'm aware. Your engineering team discovered Brad doesn't understand the systems he claimed to design. It's worse than that. The calculations he provided don't support the performance guarantees. If we'd built this system as specified, it would have failed commissioning and potentially violated energy codes." We met at the same coffee shop. James looked exhausted. "Here's the situation," he began. "Rocky Mountain Technical has a reputation to protect. We can't be associated with technically invalid designs, especially on a high-profile public project. We're withdrawing from the collaboration unless Morrison can provide legitimate engineering validation. And Morrison can't provide that because they just fired their best HVAC engineer." "Exactly." Robert Morrison called an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. Brad's promotion is being reviewed. I leaned back, processing this. James, what if I told you I have the original, technically sound versions of everything Brad presented? The designs that actually work? His eyes lit up. You'd consider consulting on this project? Under certain conditions. First, proper attribution for my work. Second, technical authority over the HVAC design. Third, Brad Morrison has no involvement in any project I work on. That might be possible, but you'd be working with Rocky Mountain Technical, not Morrison Engineering. Even better. That afternoon, I received a call from Robert Morrison himself. His voice sounded strained. Nathan, I think there's been a misunderstanding about yesterday's termination. Some new information has come to light regarding the Phoenix project. What kind of information? Technical issues that require your expertise to resolve. Would you be available to meet tomorrow morning? Robert, I was terminated yesterday for performance issues that were supposedly documented for months. What's changed? A long pause. The documentation may have been incomplete. We need to discuss reinstating your position. With Brad as my superior? I don't think so. Brad's role is being reevaluated. The board has concerns about the technical validity of recent project presentations. Wednesday morning, I walked into Morrison Engineering wearing my best suit and carrying a leather portfolio containing printed copies of all my evidence. The receptionist looked surprised to see me. Mr. Thompson? Are you here for the 9 a.m. meeting? I am. The conference room was packed. Robert Morrison and 3 board members I recognized, James Walsh and 2 Rocky Mountain technical engineers, and Brad sitting alone at the far end of the table, looking like a cornered animal. Thank you all for coming, Robert began. We're here to address technical concerns about the Phoenix Convention Center project. James Walsh spoke first. Our engineering review identified serious discrepancies between the performance claims and the actual design calculations. Before Rocky Mountain Technical can proceed, we need verification that these systems will perform as promised. Robert turned to Brad. Brad, would you walk us through the technical specifications? Brad stood up, clicking through slides that showed my stolen designs. The dual-zone HVAC system utilizes advanced thermodynamic principles to achieve optimal energy efficiency through strategic air volume management. One of the Rocky Mountain technical engineers stopped him. Excuse me, but could you explain the psychrometric calculations that support the 18% energy savings claim? Brad's face went pale. The calculations are proprietary algorithms developed through extensive modeling. Could you show us the modeling inputs, specifically the outdoor air requirements and internal heat load assumptions? Those details are confidential pending patent applications. James Walsh looked at Robert Morrison. Mr. Morrison, your son has been unable to provide basic engineering justification for these designs. We cannot proceed with a collaboration based on systems that may not actually work. Robert's face was grave. Brad, these are fundamental questions. Surely you can explain the engineering principles behind your own designs. That's when I opened my portfolio. Actually, I can explain them. Because I designed these systems. For the next 30 minutes, I walked through every technical detail. Load calculations for the main exhibition hall, VAV box sizing for the conference rooms, energy recovery ventilation specifications, equipment selections based on actual space constraints. I showed them the psychrometric analysis, the energy modeling inputs, the code compliance documentation. The Rocky Mountain technical engineers nodded along, asking detailed questions that I answered easily. Brad sat silent, his face getting redder by the minute. These calculations are exactly what we needed to see, one engineer said. The original design is technically sound. The modifications in the collaboration proposal, however, would have created serious operational problems. Robert Morrison looked at his son, then at me. Nathan, it appears we need to have a very serious conversation about project attribution and technical oversight. Brad finally exploded. This is ridiculous. He's trying to sabotage me because he's bitter about being fired. James Walsh opened his tablet. Actually, Mr. Morrison, we have the original file metadata. These designs were created by Nathan Thompson over a 6-month period. The files your son presented were modified copies, and the modifications were technically flawed. The room went silent except for the sound of Brad's career imploding. The room stayed silent for what felt like forever. Robert Morrison looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. Finally, he spoke. Brad, I think you need to leave this meeting. Now. Dad, you can't seriously believe this. He's manipulating the files, trying to destroy everything I've built. James Walsh held up his tablet. The metadata doesn't lie, Mr. Morrison. These files were created by Nathan Thompson between 6 and 12 months ago. Your modifications were added 3 weeks ago and contain fundamental engineering errors. One of the board members, Tom Harrison, leaned forward. Brad, can you explain why the air handling unit capacity you specified exceeds the available mechanical room space by 40%? Brad's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's a preliminary sizing. We would have adjusted it during detailed design. What about the ductwork sizing? I asked quietly. You increased the airflow by 30% but kept the original duct dimensions. Do you know what that does to static pressure? Silence. It means the fans can't move the air, I continued. The system would fail on startup. Any mechanical engineer knows that. Robert Morrison stood up slowly. Brad, please leave. We'll discuss this privately later. Brad looked around the room desperately, then grabbed his folder and stormed out. Through the glass walls, I watched him march past Dave Rodriguez's desk. Dave gave me a subtle thumbs up. After Brad left, the atmosphere changed completely. Tom Harrison smiled for the first time all morning. Nathan, on behalf of the board, I want to apologize. We clearly made a serious error in judgment regarding your termination. The question now, said James Walsh, is how we move forward. Rocky Mountain Technical still wants to proceed with the Phoenix project, but we need assurance that we're working with competent engineering leadership. Robert Morrison looked defeated. Nathan, I know I have no right to ask, but would you consider returning as Vice President of Engineering? Full authority over all HVAC projects, proper attribution for your work, and a 25% salary increase. I let that hang in the air for a moment. What about Brad? Brad's employment is being terminated today, effective immediately. Tom Harrison added, we're also implementing new policies requiring technical peer review for all major project presentations. This won't happen again. I'll need that in writing, I said, along with public correction of the attribution on all previous projects where Brad claimed credit for my work. Done. James Walsh was grinning. So we can proceed with the Phoenix project under Nathan's technical leadership? Absolutely, I said. But we're doing it right this time. Full commissioning plan, proper equipment specifications, and realistic performance guarantees. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of the Phoenix Development Authority presenting my refined designs for their convention center. The project was back on track with proper engineering, proper attribution, and a realistic 18-month construction timeline. The Phoenix officials were impressed with the technical depth and the honest performance projections. Mr. Thompson, this is exactly the level of expertise we expected from a project of this magnitude. After the presentation, James Walsh and I signed the collaboration agreement. Morrison Engineering would handle design development, Rocky Mountain Technical would manage construction oversight, and I would serve as the chief technical consultant for both companies. Brad's downfall was swift and complete. Word travels fast in the Denver engineering community, and stories about technical incompetence and stolen designs don't stay secret long. 3 other engineers came forward with similar experiences. Brad had been appropriating other people's work throughout his career. Last I heard, he'd left engineering entirely and was selling commercial real estate in Arizona. Robert Morrison pulled me aside after my first board meeting as VP of Engineering. Nathan, I owe you more than an apology. I failed as a leader and as a father. I enabled Brad's behavior because I wanted to believe he was capable of running this company. Robert, I get it. Family loyalty runs deep. But good engineering isn't about who you're related to. It's about solving problems and building systems that actually work. He nodded sadly. I'm 65 years old. I built this company on technical excellence, and I nearly destroyed it by ignoring technical fraud. What kind of legacy is that? The kind you can still fix. Morrison Engineering has good people doing good work. Focus on that. My daughter Sarah called that night to congratulate me on the promotion and the Phoenix project contract. Was it worth it, Dad? All those years of someone else taking credit? I thought about Brad's dismissive words that day in his office. You're just not management material. No, I told her, but proving him wrong definitely was. And more importantly, The Phoenix Convention Center is going to be an outstanding building. That's what really matters. The Phoenix Convention Center opened 18 months later, exactly on schedule. The HVAC system performed 2% better than projected, earning LEED Gold certification. My name is on the engineering plaque in the main lobby, right where it belongs. Dave Rodriguez retired 6 months after the Phoenix project launched, and I spoke at his retirement dinner. Dave taught me something important, I told the crowd. Good engineers support each other. They don't steal from each other. Looking around the room at my colleagues, real engineers who solve real problems, I realized something. Brad Morrison had actually done me a favor. By forcing this confrontation, he'd given me the chance to prove what I was really capable of. And more importantly, he'd shown everyone at Morrison Engineering the difference between real technical leadership and empty corporate politics. Sometimes the best revenge is just being better at your job than the guy trying to steal credit for it. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, you get to prove it in front of everyone who matters.